Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
All right. Hey, super excited to have Mark England back on the podcast with us. Hey, Mark, you're back within like a month. We couldn't get enough.
We did a quick turnaround, Mike. Thanks. One, it was a great conversation last time, and two, we have more cool things to talk about. So yeah, we had the second show booked 3 or 4 days after the first one was recorded.
Yeah, I think we basically kind of set up a really good overarching background and foundation for how language influences our behavior and our perspectives, how the perils and pitfalls of the victim mentality and imposter syndrome, and breathing shallowly and getting breath trapped. And I think we may have had like an inadvertent, like old school Batman cliffhanger of like, here's all the problems. Stay tuned for next episode where we're going to talk about how you can actually address some of these. So I'm going to let you get going. Why don't we just pick up where we left off?
But wait, there's more. Yeah. So lucky me, I'm turning 47 years old. Still sounds weird to say, on July 29th.
Hey, happy early birthday.
Thank you. And I'm going on Julie's podcast July 28th. Very cool. That's awesome. The second part or two, but that was, it took me a year and a half to circle back around. We're on the expedited conversation. And then so shout out to all the Wild Health listeners. And I'm going up to the games, which we talked
CrossFit
about briefly. CrossFit games.
CrossFit
Madison,
games
Wisconsin.
For those not, those really into CrossFit, you just call it the games. For any listeners not really into CrossFit, it's the CrossFit Games. So Madison, Wisconsin, it's been there for years now, and just keeps turning into a bigger and bigger event. So that's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. So I'm gonna stop by the tent, say hello to the Wild Health crew, and likely talk about the words some more, because we're going to go up there and go on some shows and things like that. So that's fun.
Awesome.
And so in that vein, we did. That was a great recap. What did we talk about last time? We talked about the problem, and in the problem is also the solution. Wow, imagine that. So let's say someone has a goal for their health journey. Someone is in a CrossFit gym and they have a goal for how they want to transform their body. Okay. And the good news is this part of the conversation, this tool, applies very well for them, and it also applies very well for someone who's going to go and compete for a layman like me, the CrossFit Games, or for people that listen, the games. Okay. So very rarely, most people are very underwritten, Mike, and I'm not talking about insurance. And so one way to help focus our attention, point ourselves in the right direction, and get us comfortable with the outcome that we're looking for. Because it's one thing to have a goal. It's another thing to have the feeling of the goal created in you, so to speak. And this is, this is a very old conversation. If you want to get a few generations back in the conversation, so still in modern times, and this goes way back into antiquity. And Neville Goddard used to talk about it. He's one of the grandfathers of this work. He used to talk about the importance of creating the feeling of the thing having already happened. So he was a writer on metaphysics and reality creation, and what what a lot of people call manifesting these days. And he would talk exactly about that, creating the feeling of the thing already being done in you. And if you want to get a little more historical, there was something called the Council of Nicaea, and I believe it was in the 14th century that happened. And they took out some books of the Bible, and one of those books talked about, and Greg Braden covers this in something called the Isaiah effect. And guess what they were talking about? Creating the feeling in you of having the thing already done. So that's what the point of this particular part of our conversation is how to do that well with a pen and a piece of paper. Okay, this is a really complicated thing, everybody. You're going to need a PhD to understand it. I'm kidding. It's not rocket science. So for what you want to do is, so whether you're the person in the CrossFit gym that wants to be in better shape for summer so you look good in a bikini or your beach shorts or whatever, look better, or you want to get on the podium. What you want to do is you want to write out what that outcome is in conversational writing. And there's this saying, you all have heard this: the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details when it comes to cleaning up the part of us that doesn't believe we can do it. The part of us that's saying, hey, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? There's so many other people better out there, also known as the imposter syndrome, okay, which is holding hands with the victim mentality. What you want to do, so the devil's in the details for that. The angels are in the details for where we want to go, where we want to point our attention. And half sentences, everybody, so we're going to talk about the writing part of it first. Half sentences about what we want to do, okay, doesn't cut it. It doesn't summon the feelings. It's not detailed enough to help us create the vibe of the thing if you want to get all new age about it. And so what am I talking about? Get on the podium. If someone writes down get on the podium as a goal, that's not enough. That's not enough words. It's not enough words to pixelate the picture, make it detailed in the imagination, and make it hit in the feels, okay? Or lose some weight. That's, how many times have you heard somebody say that when you ask them about their health goal? That I would imagine frequently.
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, not with every patient, but super, super common. And already this is evoking sort of like the SMART goals approach to me about sort of specific, achievable. There's time. I can't remember all the acronym, all the letters in SMART, but measurable.
Yep.
R might be realistic. I'm not sure, but you've got to. I think about if I were going to set a goal for athletic performance, and I don't really try and lift heavy anymore because you're lucky you're coming up on 47. I'm inching towards 50, and my ligaments and discs and tendons don't really like the super heavy weight anymore. But let's have a manufactured one. I want to squat 405 pounds by July of 2024, with increases of at least 10 pounds on my max squat every 8 weeks over the next 12 months. That may not be specific enough, and may not be like,
oh, that's fantastic.
I'd love, obviously I want to hear how you coach people through that. But to me, a ways back when I was introduced to this sort of SMART modeling, it's a real goal. It's something that you can measure. It's something that's in my case maybe realistic. It's and there's a time component to it, right? This is not I want to lose some weight. That's an idea. That's not a goal, right? It's a daydream.
It's correct. And we'll back up even further, and then I'll support that 1,000%, because what you just said about back squatting that weight by when the process. Fantastic. Most people, only 3% of the population has any written goals. So that 97% of the population doesn't have goals. You know what they have? They have dreams and they have schemes. If it's up here, everybody, if it's up in your head, it's not a goal. It is a dream. If it's written down, it can only be a goal if it's written down. And there are some goal setting studies, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10-year goal setting studies that point to a dramatic increase in the rate of accomplishment once something hits paper. Okay. And then, so once we're in the conversation, once we're in that 3%, and that actually, it's very telltale for me, Mike, is that 97% of the population, again, doesn't have any written goals. That makes a lot of sense. They don't even have a draft to hand in, everybody. Okay. Remember in high school when you didn't even have a draft to hand in compared to having a draft? So once your goal is written down on paper, you now have a draft. You now have the ability to elaborate on that. Okay, get a second, third draft, and absolutely what Mike is talking about, get the numbers in there. Numbers make it real, okay? Pounds off the body, pounds on the bar, dollars, dates, things like that, miles run, all of that makes it real, and it usually puckers people up a little bit, and it also gets them excited at the same time. That's when you know you're flirting with something of value, because I could pick up my pen and write a goal out to sit on the couch and eat 3 Snickers bars and watch a Netflix movie tonight. Okay, that's not going to challenge me. Okay, it's not gonna pucker me up. It might get me excited, but that's somebody. And so yes, and where you take that, what you just said, and make it even better is write out what that would do. How would that feel to make that to accomplish that? Okay, what kind of story would that help you create? How would that influence you 6 months from now? And so you have, if you take a goal and do exactly what Mike said, and then also add in some extra details. So the goal is it's not just one sentence, it's 2 or 3 paragraphs. Now because what you want to do is you want to err on the side of more detail than less. That's step 1. And it needs to be conversational, everybody, so you can practice saying it. So here it is. There's this thing. It's called 4-stepping stories, and it works for the stories of, let's say, the divorce when you were 9, or when you bullied, or the time you got up to give the presentation in 6th grade and you forgot your lines and you froze and everybody laughed at you, and you decided from that moment on, I'm not a good public speaker and I'm never going to go do the thing again. And so that story gets in your way when it's time to present at work and you're sweating bullets and because guess what, everybody, the stories from back then that most of the time, if it stung back then, it's still stinging now. I can elaborate on that in a short amount of time. Once we get, if you want me to, Mike, once we get a little further down the conversation of how to 4-step a desired outcome. So 1, write it out conversationally, get the numbers in there, get the details in there. 2, this is really complicated. Read it. Regular speed. Okay? See what happens. Whatever happens is correct. Read it, regular speed. Here's where it gets interesting. For me, really interesting. Step 3, read it at 30% slower than your normal rate of speech. So 70% of your normal rate of speech. Here's what happens, everybody. So now we're in the conversation of the mechanics, the mechanism of storytelling. Because guess what? Your goals, that's a story. And most people are overly committed to the why as opposed to the how. And when you start getting into the how, now you've got your hands on the levers, the brakes, the turn signal, the ignition. Most people do not get down to moderating their rate of speech because they're too busy believing who knows what. So anyway, here's what happens. When someone slows down their rate of speech, the breath begins to unlock. The breath begins to loosen up. And that's a really good thing, because when you're breathing well in context to the story you're telling yourself about the thing that you want to go do, you're bringing the energetic an emotional component into it, as in the right kind of energy and the right kind of emotions, the parasympathetic set of emotions, the down-regulated set of emotions. Like I said earlier, you're starting to flirt with the idea, what's more than an idea, of creating the feeling of the thing being real inside you, or the ability for it to be real. Because if a story is like something, okay, so I want a podium and I keep it in my head, and then I've got nothing written down, and if I go to tell someone, I'm usually going to give very little detail, and then my breath is going to be trapped in my chest. I'm going to bring this up here in a second because it's super important. So step 1, review. I'm a teacher to the core. Write it out conversationally. Full sentences, punctuation, give all the details. Step 2, read at regular speed. Step 3, read it 30% slower, so you slow down. Then step 4 is the slow read, and at the end of each sentence, everybody, you do this. Full inhalation, full exhalation. And here's what that does. It does three different ways of saying the same thing. It socializes the idea. It helps take it to heart. It helps us embody the concept. And so when we're telling that story, when we're reading it slow plus breath, we're giving ourselves the time. Because guess what? Breath in the chest, in context to, let's say, a story that you want to do, that's part of you that's resistant to it. And breath in the chest, most people are breathing in their chest, by the way. Great words versus breath trapped in the chest, the breath wins. The breath is it's the gatekeeper. It's the gate. And if all you've got is a good story and breath in the chest, then it's just this headspace. It's this mental exercise. That's why most people say when they get into affirmations, which has a goofy name for more than just Stuart Smalley. If you know, now I'm really dating myself. Remember Stuart Smalley? Remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So affirmations, most people say when they get into affirmations work, oh, I don't feel it. You know why? The number one reason that people don't feel that is because when they're repeating their affirmations, their breath is trapped in their chest. And it's just this thing that can't get into our feelings. The breath is the vector. It's the vector for us to get into the emotional component. And when we can see what the thing looks like, and we've got a plan to get there, and it feels real in our body, and we can practice, as in if you've got the words written down, guess what you can do once a day, everybody? Read that couple of paragraphs out with breath. Once you get to step 4, just step 4 step. Do the 4th step once a day. Read them and breathe, as we say in the biz. Instead of read them and weep, read them and breathe. And you practice creating the picture, and you'll feel it, okay? This takes visualization practice. Oh, here, I'm just going to say it. And this is only my personal and professional opinion. Take it or leave it. Getting the breath in between the sentences is the missing link. It's the missing key to visualization practices. Because if I've got the picture and I don't have the feels, what do I have? Okay, not as much as I could. That's the best way to answer that. And when I've got the words, which pixelate the imagination, and then I add in the breathing, now I'm working with a lot of the components of my experience of myself. Okay? My imagination, it's the pictures in the movies that I make in my head. My language, that's my thoughts, what I think, what I say, what I write, my breath, and my energy. And then put in my physical body, and those, like, and you're a doctor, I'm an elementary school I'm an elementary school PE teacher with a handful of MMA fights. I'm the most simple, basic dude you're ever going to come across with anything, really. And so what I'm good at, because it's the only way I understand things, is to make things simple. And that's a simple way. It's a layman's way to make sense of something that can be quite complicated, like mindset. What is that?
Yeah.
We have a definition of mindset. We talked about it. Our definition of mindset is the story that you tell yourself. There's that. It's as simple as that. what you tell yourself that you can do and what you can't do, and what you do deserve and what you don't deserve, what is possible and what isn't possible. And guess what, everybody? Those aren't laws. Those aren't units of measurement. You're not going to find nothing ever works out for me on like the periodic table of elements. Those are all opinions. What rules people's world are opinions, and most of those opinions get formed before the age of 12. Unbeknownst to us, something happens, and we tell ourselves a story about it, and then what it means about us. So the divorce happens at 9, and then dad goes across town, and we see him twice a week or twice a month, and we're living with mom, and she's a basket case, and I'm 9, and my sister's 7, and I'm the man of the house, and I gotta step up and take responsibility for. I gotta be there for everybody, and then I walk out of the door when I'm 18 or 20 or whenever, and I keep repeating that pattern. That's because some ideas got jammed in my head way back then, and I haven't taken the time. Or it's an education issue. It's not an intellectual. It's not a deservance issue. It's not a IQ issue. It's just people aren't educated on how to go get those ideas, opinions. That's what belief systems are. Okay, belief system is a fancy word for an opinion. On how to pick up a pen
which is a fancy word for a thought.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, it's all just thought stuff that we take as solid, and believe the stories that the thoughts tell us. And I'm a doctor, and yeah, I mean, I definitely spent a lot of time studying really complex, conceptual topics, and yet when it comes to working with real human beings and trying to help them make their lives more fulfilling and healthier and more robust and longer, it is simple things. And I love the fact that already you've got 4 steps, none of which require more than a pen or pencil and paper. Right. So, we go ahead, we set a goal by writing it out conversationally. We read it at 0.7x, which is like the opposite of how I listen to podcasts. So I like that already. Let's slow it down and then punctuate the slow read with real belly breaths and real inhales and exhales. That to me feels really intuitive as opposed to, visualizing winning the tennis match versus having a match coming up and really writing out, hey, this is what I'm going to do to win this match on Saturday, and to really start feeling that. I mean, we know about visualization in athletic performance and how valuable it is, but if you can really get to the point where you believe it in your body and it's not just a thought, I think that's probably where the rubber really hits the road. Follow-up question for you, like how many of these goals do you, when you're working with clients, like I can imagine somebody saying, I've got plenty of people in my personal life, my professional life, who there's lots of things that they want to do, right? They want to, and I'm not going to write them all out conversationally or even tell them conversationally, but like the summary of the dreams would be in better shape, be more connected to their friends and family, make more money, save more money, have a more fulfilling job, give more back to their communities. Like there's so many, really well-motivated ideas and, dreams / concepts that people have about what they'd like to see different in their lives. I just had the funny thought of, going up to my refrigerator and there's like 9 2-paragraph pieces of paper, and somehow I need to read all of them at 0.7x and take a deep breath after every sentence, and like I never get out of the house. My goal is to get out of the house.
Got to get out. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, exactly. So, first thing that comes to mind there is it depends. It's going to depend on the client. So some clients are going to need some small wins. Okay, that's going to do more for them than setting a big goal, which just adds to the overwhelm. Okay, some clients are going to need a 1 or 2 big goals that they can look at that lights them up. So it's gonna be an audible based on the coach. Okay, which comes down to very much how much time you've spent working with them and calibrating them and getting to know them. So my answer to that is it depends. Okay,
Sure.
And
It's our favorite answer at Wild Health, by the way. It's our favorite answer.
Is it?
Should I eat this? It depends. I mean, it's everybody's different, and there's a lot of factors that come into play. So you're right on the home turf if you're going with an it depends answer. That makes sense to me. I mean, I think you probably have some clients who have 2 or 3 things they're actively working on. Somebody else has like the big dream, right? I'm going to climb Everest, and there's a lot of detail and a lot of singular focus on this is my goal right now, or apropos of the games coming up, I want a podium at the games, right? Or I want to place second at the games or first at the games. I want to place in the top 10 in this many events, like whatever it is. I think some folks will have a singular driving large goal, and then you'll have folks working on a number of smaller ones. I would think there's an inflection point at some point, though, where, if you've got more than, I don't know, 3 or 4 active things that you're working to do, that you probably see some diminishing returns.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And that's going to be a learning process as people go down the path. So some people will be able to, have 9 goals going on at once. Some people it's 1, 2, or 3. If it looks like if your clients, if you're getting into the area of too many goals, you'll start to get into overwhelm and inaction. Okay, so you can always walk it back a bit. So let's say they've got 6 active goals, and they're like, I'm having trouble getting to all of these things. What do you suggest? Okay, knock off the 2 that are least exciting to you. Okay, and so focus on 4. Let's focus on 4 for the month, or maybe knock it in half. And so what you're looking for when you're helping people with their goals is that they stay on the path of small action. Small action. So whether it's Everest or dropping 20 pounds. Those are small action steps. And a lot of times the hardest part is getting started. Okay. And if the easiest way to help someone get started in a coaching session is called chunking. You chunk the thing down to very small action steps and see if you can get them to pull some triggers on the call. Because very frequently they can. Very frequently they can take some action, as in, I want to get back in the gym. Okay, what kind of gym? What do you mean? Yeah, what kind of gym? Is it CrossFit? You want to go to Planet Fitness and have somebody pull the lunk alarm on you? Yoga? What is it? It's like, and so, okay, well, yeah, CrossFit. I listen to these guys on Wild Health, and they're really cool, and they're in the CrossFit space. I want to do CrossFit. Okay, great. Are you on your laptop? Yeah, you are, because I can see you on the Zoom screen. Look up CrossFit gyms in your area. That'll take 10 seconds. Okay, once they hit the magic button, and okay, there's one 15 minutes away, and that one's got 3 stars, and there's one 20 minutes away. That one looks, that's a really pretty gym. Okay, great. What's their schedule? Oh, well, I have to book in for a call. I got to book in for an appointment. Okay, great. Can you do that now? Can I book in for an appointment? Book in for a call? Right? Yeah. Can you do that? Yeah, I can. Okay, great. Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Well, they've got this intake form. Okay, how many questions? So there's 6 or 7. Perfect. Do it now. And in 4 or 5 minutes, you can have a ball rolling. And once that ball's rolling, awesome. And how you keep that ball rolling is a lot of times it's just small action steps. What can you do? And once the person they'll call you God in the coaching space if you can help them do that. I've done that so many times I'm somewhere around 750 workshops in-person workshops that I've given. And hundreds of those, we'll just say 250 have been goal setting. And one comes to mind from Chicago, 2019. I went out there and did a goal setting workshop, and the guys, look, this is exactly what we're talking about, Mike. The guy's goal, I said, okay, everybody pick up your pen and write out 3 goals. And I knew what was going to happen. Yeah. It was going to be a bunch of half sentences. Most of everybody's stuff is going to be half sentences. Okay, great. Guess what? You've got a draft to hand in. You're in the conversation. So I pointed at this one guy and I said, what's the first thing you wrote down? And he goes, read more books. Okay, it's half sentence. Read more books. I go, okay, great. How many books? Well, more. I said, great. Yes, exactly. Let's put a top. How many books would more books be? What's the ideal more book reading for you per month? And so I gave him a piece of the framework. I was like, okay, I went first. Okay, I didn't wait for him. I was like, okay, per month, how many books? He goes, well, one. And I'm like, okay, great. How many books you want to read a book a month? And he goes, yeah, that sounds great. And I go, okay, how many months in a row do you want to do that for? 6, 9, 12. He goes, I want to do that for a year. And I'm like, okay, what kind of books? And I forget the genre, but he said what kind of books they were. And I'm like, okay, do you own those books? How many of those books do you own? And he's like, I've read one of them and it was really interesting. I go, great. Do you have your cell phone? Yes. Okay, cool. Go to Amazon. And he did. And I said, purchase the 3 most exciting books in that genre on Amazon right now. And he goes, right now? And I go, yeah, right now. And in just about as much time as it took me to say that, he had 3 books in the mail, and then he put in his calendar to read one of those books per month for the next 12 months. And that dude, his whole face was different because the thing was rolling. The thing was rolling. And a lot of times I'll have clients pull out their calendar and get a small action step or 2 put in the calendar because it's magic. When something goes in the calendar, people are like, oh my God, it's happening. Yeah, exactly. So here it is in a nutshell, everybody. Action dispels overwhelm. Small action dispels overwhelm. People think that the answer to their big goals, the action has to be equally as big. No, it's almost always the exact opposite. You give me 2 or 3 small action steps for climbing Mount Everest, and that thing's on. As in, when are you going to go? When are you going to go? What travel company? Have you researched travel companies? No, I haven't. Okay, great. How 45 minutes, an hour, 30 minutes? How long is it going to take you to research it? Well, a friend of mine went. Write his name down, send him a text. Can you do that right now? Yeah, I can. That text goes out. And then, okay, so 3 days from now, I'm from 9 to 9:30, I'm researching trekking companies and I'm looking at flights. And it's like the things says it's exactly rocket science. I just went on a rant and tangent, Mike. Bring us back.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it because it's, if I were to give the, bottom line up front for a lot of what we've talked about today, it's, take that first step, right? I mean, even with regards to goal setting, right? It's write it down. There's your first step. Then, a lot of us struggle with sort of, well, what is the first step? But I think that's a story that we tell ourselves. We all know what the first step is. We're struggling with indecision and actually pulling the trigger and getting momentum going. And that's really where having accountability, even if that accountability is just in the form of you in a workshop going, oh, you want to read? Yeah. Do you have an Amazon account? I do. It's a lot harder to.
That's exactly how it happens.
Inactive when somebody's calling you out and saying, "What is there really anything stopping you from taking the first step towards what it is you'd like to achieve?" And the answer is, sure, there may be, right? I mean, somebody may be recovering from, something near and dear to us, right? Like somebody's got a terrible knee injury and they want to climb Everest, right? It may be that you need to start doing some of the other planning, start working on conditioning yourself in ways that don't involve using your knee. But there are always some steps that could be taken, even if you can't take all of them, just from the get-go. Curious, I think one more thing I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. So you're working with a client, they've 4-stepped, which I feel like should be a dance move of some kind. And they have, it starts to become apparent that maybe that goal needs to be revised, right? I mean, you've got your draft of read more books. Great. That's just a draft. You get a first submission of, it's fully conversational. You've done all the reading and pacing and breathing with it and gone through all 4 steps. And it's, 2 months later, and it looks like there's a problem there in terms of meeting that goal. how do you approach working with somebody who, we can keep the book example. Let's say, it's 3 months later and they've managed to read one book. Is it obviously diving into what's stopping them would be where my mind would go, sort of like what's keeping you from achieving that goal. But then how do you tell when it's time for somebody to just maybe revise that goal and come up with a second, a third, fourth draft?
When the answers for why it's a challenge, negation, acknowledge, don't look, sound, and smell like the imposter syndrome. When it looks, sounds, and smells like it's not something of an emotional block getting in the way. Maybe it's a time constraint. Maybe they've got 2 sets of kids. Okay, they had a marriage, they had a couple of children, and they live in the same town, and they just can't get into the gym 4 days a week. Okay. And putting that extra pressure on them is making them short-tempered. Okay, let's scale that down. Let's find out. So it's like artillery. It's like artillery. You're dialing it in. You're shooting forward. You're back, and you're dialing it in until you find what works for them currently. And so it's this thing that fluctuates. There's people. I've seen people. I've done it. Create a lot of stress for themselves by having too tight of a grip on the goal, okay? Too tight of a grip on the goal and squeezing the fun and the joy out of life. Yeah. Okay, so fine. If you're going for a podium, yes, have a death knuckle, white knuckle grip on that thing and squeeze the life out of everything else in your life to give that your best shot. Because guess what? The clock's ticking on that. It was the same thing with my fight career. I had a window of time for me to fight, and because there's a very short shelf life on that. How many? I know there's a master's in or at least I'm remembering that there's a master's in CrossFit. I mean, how many 56-year-olds are competing with the 23-year-olds?
Yeah, none.
Exactly. So it depends on it. Oh, there we go. We're absolutely in the same camp. And if someone has enough life experience or coaching experience working with people, they're going to use that word a lot because they've had points of reference. They have enough experience, enough data going, well, okay, it really does depend. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. It depends on the so that's my answer for that part of it. And then if someone is procrastinating like crazy about and they've got time to do it, let's just starting their own podcast. Okay, you want to take a good look at the imposter syndrome, right? You want to take a good, because a lot of people they have a deep-rooted fear of being seen, and they will create all kinds of interesting and elaborate and believable stories to stay. I don't want to use an overused word, to play it safe, to not have the potential of failing at the thing or competing with other people that they put higher above themselves. So I'll tell the story real quick. A friend of mine, I used to ride bicycles with him. I lived in Thailand for a while. He came over and lived with me in Thailand. And then he moved up to China, and he lived there for a year and a half and met his wife at a tea house, a Chinese tea house. And he married her and brought her back over to the States. Very cool woman who specializes in international import-export in and out of China. And so in 2009, he goes, hey man, I'm going to start a podcast. And remember podcasting in 2009? That was wild. It's like who does that crazy kind of thing? And he goes, I'm going to talk. We're going to do it out of my garage. We're going to do it over Chinese tea, oolong tea, and I'm going to sell tea on my website. He bought 17 drums of tea and all the accoutrements and all the stuff and website and all the thing. And He did 3 shows. And he asked me, he's like, will you be on my first podcast? I was like, yeah, of course. And he did 3 podcasts, and then he stopped. He stopped, and he could have had the biggest tea podcast on the planet by now, selling containers of the stuff. He stopped because he didn't like the sound of his own voice. He didn't like the sound of his own voice. He didn't get over himself enough to podium. Okay, he didn't get over himself enough to go compete with other people in the arena. And as far as coaching is concerned, that's called charging for your services, and you're putting your services up there against other people's, and the market decides. And for a lot of people, that's something that at the very least creates a whole lot of friction and problems. It's the fear of being seen, because most people are stuck between a rock and a hard place, which is the need for recognition and then the fear of being seen. Okay, we want to be good, we want to be recognized, we want to have a peer group, and then there's that fear of being seen, and it's this ping pong match from hell that and all that story stuff. A lot of times it's coming back from stuff that happened in our childhood that people haven't written out, that people haven't gotten out of their head. And here's a quick one. When it comes to the stories, everybody, the stories of ouch and pain and sting and woe, they burn going in, they smolder while they're in there, and they burn coming out, just like a spicy Thai dish. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to a Thai restaurant. I did this last week. Order the hottest thing on the menu and message me in 36 hours, 48 hours, assuming everything's working well. And it's the same thing with our stories. It's like the story of the divorce. That stung then. It's in there, smoldering, doing stuff. And then if we get into the details of it, oh, God, the feels come up just like it was happening back then. Time doesn't apply to the emotional body, everybody. And so because it stings when we go back in there and get detailed and we're reliving it, and most people do whatever they can to avoid those sets of feelings. And so we use the same thing, 4-stepping stories. It's a strange phenomenon, and it's way past my ability to understand it. The only thing I keep coming back to, Mike, is intent. Is that someone can go get that story of the divorce when they were 9 that happened in the kitchen, because that's where half of the stories of divorce happen. People, let's everybody sit down at the kitchen table. This is going to be fun. And 4-step that. So story kept in the head, breath trapped in the chest, picture is in your face. Story in the head, breath trapped in the chest, picture in your face. This is the mechanics of storytelling. Wherever you look, there it is. It's too close to home. And you write it out and air it out. And as the breath descends, this is heaven for a coach. As the breath descends down, as the breath descends, the picture zooms out. So it goes from subjective to objective. I go from the participant to the observer. And as far as the goals, so part of the problem with the problem is it's too close and scary. Same thing, 4-stepping stories, 4-stepping a goal. One of the problems is it's too far away. Oh, that doesn't seem attainable. But I use the same tool and it zooms it in. And I've been doing this for years. I certify all of our coaches. I deliver all of our trainings. And everybody said it's the same thing. You don't have to tell the client, okay, time to zoom the picture out now. It does it automatically. The same tool does 2 different things. I'm stuck on intent. Some unwritten rule. Oh, I'm going to go into that divorce thing because I'm tired of taking on feeling responsible for everybody's feelings in my adult life as a 42-year-old guy. It's driving me nuts, and I know it's not. It's inaccurate, and still I keep doing it. And yeah, why am I writing down that I want a podium? Because I want a freaking podium. Okay, so it's the intent that drives the thing.
Wow, I can't think of a better place for us to wind it down. I have a few things that I have to mention. Number one, not a precision medicine recommendation for anyone to go order the spiciest thing on a Thai restaurant's menu. You may know not this is not a doctor-patient relationship, and they're not advising you
Blame
to
it
do
on
that.
me.
Although I've been there, and it's a blast. So that's user discretion. The burning going in, the smoldering, and the burning going out. I think the burning going out is what really gets a lot of people stuck. Right? Is we don't want to feel pain, and we don't want to have to revisit painful things, and yet it's probably a lot like a real full out athletic effort. Right? It's like you're going to get on the rower and go as hard as you can for 3 minutes. That is a really amazing high intensity stimulus. You're not going to want to do it when that day comes up on your calendar, because you're already seeing yourself moaning on the floor afterwards and unable to get up for a little while. It's really good for you, right? Just because it hurts doesn't mean that it's not really good for you. So, but you got to come to that, to the place of being able to work with those stories or goals, zooming out or zooming in respectively when you're ready. And I think that's one area where coaching really comes in, and certainly mental health professionals and therapy, and there's all sorts of different modalities that people can incorporate to start to look at that kind of stuff. And the last thing I want to say, number one, look out for Mark. Can't miss him. Big guy with beard. Looks like he could probably still kick your butt at kickboxing. And even though he's coming up on 47, so look out for him at the games. And if you want more info on getting in touch with Mark or see what he's doing online, rather than just repeating all of it, if you haven't already listened to July 12th Wild Health podcast, our first time chatting on the podcast, just go back and listen to it. And if you have listened to it, just skip to the end. We've got all the ways to get in touch with Mark and find out more about what he's going on. So with all that, Mark, thank you so much for coming back with us. It was a blast. I'm sorry I'll miss you at the games, but you'll get to meet some of the cool other Wild Health folks who were there.
I look forward to it, Mike. Thanks for having me on. You're a great host. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll meet in person at some point in time. Small world.
Look forward to it.
That's all for this episode. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you're looking for more, be sure to follow us on social at WildHealthMD and head over to wildhealth.com or wildhealth.com/premium to become a patient and experience precision medicine for yourself.